Okay, and I'm not sure why my phone is not showing up, but okay. All right. Well, welcome to you all. This is the Google Hangout Meets training session. This is the device that we are currently using in the period of time while we are all being quarantined and not meeting our classes face-to-face. The Google Hangout Meet is an excellent option. It is an excellent way to augment and to meet and continue to meet your classes in a real-time communication. We're separated by distance, but we are still meeting our classes and can do so. And this is an excellent tool that will allow you to do that. There are other tools that are out there. There's Blackboard Collaborate, which we all have access to. There's Zoom. There's a bunch of other products. Some of them are a little bit more robust. This is fairly simple. It's straightforward. It has some pretty neat features, but there are also some inherent restrictions, and we'll kind of talk about those. What I would like to do in this session, we should probably be about a half hour, I suspect. What I'd like to do in this section is go through and talk about how you set this up through your Google Calendar. Want to show you, as you are running a session, some of the different features that exist and some of the things that you can do while you are teaching. We'll talk a little bit about presenting through, if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation in your class, or you're going to utilize Word, or you want to show an Excel spreadsheet, or you want to demonstrate something or show, some other website, a URL, etc. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the video conferencing classroom management, some different considerations and some things that are rather unique to video conferencing over face-to-face instruction. So we'll kind of go through a number of those things and kind of talk through. So let's first off talk about how you go about setting this up. And I'm going to share with you my screen and the process to go about doing this. Okay, and you see now that you should be seeing my screen. Okay. All right, so as I go in, and let's go to my calendar, okay? And we'll just say that we're going to start a session sometime here today. So I'm going to schedule Rick's practice session number 5. Okay, and that would just be the title. This is just creating an event, any event that you would do. So as I double click into this puts me in here, and it automatically puts you into the all day. Unclick the all day, set the time factor of when you want your class to meet. So we're going to say we want it to meet at 2:30 this afternoon, and we'll run it from 2 to 3 or 2:30 to 3 or whatever time frame you want. The question is, can you have this repeat? Yeah, you can. If you're going to plan on doing this, every Tuesday, Thursday, once a week, whenever you're planning on doing it, you can set the parameters to go into, how you want to set this, daily, weekly, custom setup for this, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, however you want to do it, you can structure and set that up in here. So that, you don't have to keep doing this invite. You can set this room and leave this room alone, and it'll be there. So that's a very good, easy, quick way to do something like that. And I'm just going to say do not repeat for now. Now, you would normally come down and you would put a location in here, Patrick Henry, room 304, or you would put Massey or wherever else, Wheatley Hall, whatever room that you want this meeting to go. Since we're not doing this in a physical location, you are, however, adding conferencing. So you go directly below the add location, come to conferencing, and you will see Hangouts Meet. Click Hangouts Meet. And this puts this into the parameter here that you now have set up a Google Hangout. And if you do the pull down here, you can see that you've got, the address, you've got the meeting ID, you've got a phone number if you want, and a PIN number if you wanted to have people call in, or they couldn't do this and they wanted to call in, that's fine. As you scroll down, you can also add a description in here. Now that description can be anything you want, hello, let's type that. hello to all, and is going to be our Google if I could type, that would be good. Okay, and you just simply go in. You could put whatever message you want, whatever email type thing that you wanted to put in here. Next, come over here and you want to add guests into this. Okay, so you want to invite the people that you want. Now, in general, you can do this. I'm going to invite Phil again. So I'm going to put Phil in here, and Phil is now part of this meeting that I'm organizing. But if I want to invite my class and I want to invite all of my students, you don't want to just have to sit here and type in their addresses or type their names in. There's got to be a faster, easier way. And yes, there is. So if you go into your Sentry, okay, go into your Sentry if you would, and you will see your roster of classes. In the middle here, you will see a yellow bar. As you see that yellow bar, go all the way to the right side where you see the little icon, little guy icon. Click on that and scroll down, and you can say export to CSV, and then simply download this. What this will do is it will drop this into your Excel spreadsheet, because what you're really trying to capture is their email addresses. Okay, so as you scroll down, you can come up, just highlight over top of the email address and capture that. Once you've done that, just right click. I'm only going to do a handful of people. I'm going to do the first 5 or 6 people. Right click, copy, drop out of that spreadsheet and go back into your calendar. Now what you can do is click back into add guests, right click, and paste all those email addresses. Once you see all that line of email addresses, that's everybody from your class that you want to invite. Hit enter. What you will notice is all of those people that you want to add in here now become part of the invitee list. Okay. Now, I don't want to invite these folks, so I'm just going to take them out. But you see how you just add them in? I'm going to leave Phil in there only because I don't want to send these folks an email address or an email. So I'm going to send this, and all you do, once you've got this the way you want it, you can set any other parameters like you would any other event, but just hit save. And once you save that, would you like to send invitation emails to Google Calendar guests? You simply say send. Okay, it becomes that simple, that easy. And now we notice that this is in here. Rick's practice session 5 is there. All you have to do is click the Google Hangouts. It takes you into the room. If you wanted to, you could cut and paste this address and send it to the students. You can allow the microphone. You can allow the webcam. And now this puts you directly back into this room. And all you need to do at this point is hit join the room. Okay, and you're there, and it's that simple to do. Okay, it is very simple to do here. Okay, now that we are in our room, and you will notice a couple of different things here. Is everybody still with me? And everybody hearing me? Okay.
Yes, we are.
Very good, thank you. Okay, now that you're in here, there's some different things within this room that you can do. First of all, if you click in the middle of the screen, you will see the white bar along the bottom, which you should be seeing on mine. If you look right in the middle, you see the red handset. That allows you to leave the call if and when you choose to do so. To the left of that, you see a little microphone. That's where you will turn off your microphone or turn on your microphone as you choose. You can do the same thing just to the right. That's a camera. You can turn on and off the camera as you wish. Google Hangouts doesn't suffer some of the issues that Blackboard Collaborate does. When you get more than, say, a dozen people in Blackboard Collaborate with their microphone and their camera on, we kind of start to notice that that'll degrade, and you'll start to see students drop off. So what you can do is just tell them just don't use their mic. They can stay in, mute their microphone, and turn off the camera. Google Hangouts doesn't seem to suffer that. Both Phil Miller and Jimmy have told us that you can have upwards of 250 people in. The only reason I would say mute the microphone is just for background noise and background sound, so that's not a problem. But keeping your camera on does not seem to be an issue. Okay, if you move just to the right of that, you will notice you see turn on captions. And the captions have been turned on, and this is actually a pretty sharp little tool. You see that everything that I am saying is actually being captured on the screen, word for word, and is actually pretty accurate. In fact, several people have said, can we capture what we record here? You can't from this area, you can't recapture this text, but it does show you where the tool has gone and what you're able to do. If you go to the right of that, you will see, and you'll see that you're presenting. We'll talk about that in a minute, but you will also see three little dots. If you pull up the three little dots, you see several elements here. You can go into settings, and that will allow you to check your audio. You can click over on the video, and that will allow you to check your video setup. This is a way for you to assist and maybe do some level of troubleshooting for you or your students as is needed. You can go in and turn off the captions from here or turn them back on. It's just a redundant system within Google. You can click on full screen. You can click on change the layout. If you change the layout here, you can do different things in here just to show what you want and how you wish it to look. You can do the spotlight, which is just center it. You can do the, what was the other one? You can do the titled, whichever one you are comfortable with, so you have some parameters, can see what's going on and follow. If you go to the top right-hand side of the screen, it gives you some different information. You can see a list of the participants. You see the number 16 up there at the top, and you do the drop down. You see you got 16. We've got 16 people in this call, and you see everybody who is here. This allows you to do a couple of things. You not only see who's here, this is a great way for you to take attendance. You know who is on your call. You can't take attendance electronically. You can't cut and paste or copy. But what you can do is, as you would in your face-to-face class, you just very simply take this, use your roster and check off who is present, who is not present in your class. If you also go down through, what you can do is you can pin certain people to the call or to the center of the screen. So I'm going to pin John right to the center. So John's picture there. I think this is the real picture of John. There we go. That's a live version of John. So we can see that, and I can unpin that as well if I want to show certain people up here. The other thing that you can do, if for some reason I wanted to remove somebody, I could do so. This little button over here to the right that says remove, you can kick somebody out if you want. There was some question yesterday whether students were able to kick you out. Now, anybody with an rmu.edu account can kick anybody else out. Not a nice thing to do, so don't do that. But your students don't have the rmu.edu, they have the Gmail emails, then that doesn't allow. And Jimmy, jump in here.
Mail.rmu.edu.
Mail.rmu.edu, that doesn't allow. They don't have that that ability. That is only limited for or allowed for rmu.edu. So there are some good things with that, a little bit of control there. Over to the right top of that, you've got the chat function, okay? And this is something that is really kind of a good thing. It is on most video conferencing or video chat type functions. Zoom has it, Blackboard, Collaborate has it. It's a good thing and something that I would tell your students to do. It's a way for them to be engaged. You know, as you're talking, they don't want to interrupt, but they may have a question. You can, as Gary is doing in here, said muting my mic because the dog is barking. Thank you. The joys of working from home. So how do you get your picture to display instead of the webcam? You know, those are just different things that, you know, questions that a student would ask. We'll address those questions afterward. But you can have your students make comments, ask questions, but this is just something that takes a little bit of practice on your part to get coordinated with. Because you think about this, you're doing a couple of different things. You're presenting, you're controlling your screen, you're controlling what is showing on the screen, who's talking, who's showing, all of those kind of things. Plus now you're having to read while you're talking what other people are saying. So you really are multitasking. It's not difficult. It's just something it takes a little bit of practice to get used to and to get coordinated with. But those are easy things to do. Let's talk about one other element here. We are recording this session, and we're recording that so those that weren't able to make this will be able to see it. But the question always comes in for this particular setup. The fact that we are utilizing this as a replacement for our face-to-face classes, do we really need to record these? If this is our lecture, this is our classroom as it is, do we need to be recording these? And the answer is no. I mean, if a student, and somebody said, well, if a student misses a session, then I can record it for them. Well, if a student misses your face-to-face class, do you record your class for them? And the general answer is no, we don't. If a student misses a class, they miss your class. It is their responsibility to gain the material from other students, to talk with you, to do whatever else it is that they need to do. So I don't know that there's a necessity for us to record. If you find there's a reason to record, you certainly can do it. And the recording then, though, as we did at the beginning, you need to gain permission from everybody so that you can record that. That is a potentially legal issue. I would just tell you, don't. If there's really not a need, don't record. Now, I will tell you that the record function in itself is kind of a nice little tool. You can set up your own little meeting if you want to. Go in, do the recording of you demonstrating something. If you wanted to save that for your students, you wanted to post that for your students or apply that for something that you wanted to demonstrate in a face-to-face class, you can certainly do it. We've seen several instructors who've been utilizing that tool. You can do it from your camera or from your laptop or desktop, whatever you're using, or you can certainly do that from your cell phone. And if you have the Google Hangout Meet app, you can run this whole session from your phone as well. And same rules, same way. It's just very easy. In fact, sometimes the camera may be a little bit better as well. So those are options as well. One of the other things I'll tell you, once you stop the recording, what will happen is Google will render a video. And depending on the size of that video and the number of people on it, it may take a little bit of time. And especially with what I suspect is a high volume of usage on Google products right now, it may take a little bit of time for that to be rendered. But what it will do is it will save it in your Google Drive. They'll give you a link to that. An email will be sent out to everybody that is on the call, and they can access that information, or you can send that to them and utilize that for whatever it is that you would want to do. So that is an option. But again, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should, or doesn't mean we need to. Okay, so just put that into perspective if you would. Okay. Okay. All right, we've talked about the chat function. Let's talk a little bit about presenting, and if you are presenting and what you end up doing or need to do. As you are presenting, here's what generally will happen. So I'm going to stop presenting and then show you how we do this. If I go into present, you will pop up, and I'm not sure you're seeing this, I don't think you are. You will hit your entire screen. As you do, if you go to the bottom, look at the bottom right, it says present now. If you click on that, you will get two windows come up. You'll have a window or your entire screen. So I will click on your entire screen. I'm going to ask you not to. What will come up in the middle of the screen, just below the URL bar, which I know that's not the right title for that. What is the title for that, Phil, Jimmy?
I'm sorry, say again.
The center bar where you've got the URL address, what is that bar? What is that area called?
The address bar across the top.
Okay, we'll go with the address bar. And if you'll just below that, you'll see select window or screen. You'll do a pull down. You'll get a number of different options there, but I would hit the entire screen. And then an allow button will come up, and you just allow that. And what now happens is, as you're seeing in the center of the screen, it says you are presenting, and this allows you now to share your particular screen. So as I'm sharing this, whatever is on my computer, whatever I have open is what students will see or what participants will see. So is if I wanted to do a narrated, or excuse me, not a narrated, if I wanted to do a PowerPoint presentation, or I wanted to show you a number of different slides, or I wanted to show you a number of different documents, a Word document, an Excel document, or like I was doing before I took you out onto a web page and we were in Sentry for a bit. You can show the students and demonstrate anything else that you want them to see. Now, let's take a couple of minutes and go through just some classroom management things for you to consider. Just a little bit different doing audio and video conferencing than it is a face-to-face classroom. So let's just go through some things that you need to consider and think about. Things that you otherwise don't have to think about in a face-to-face class, but you do have to think about here. So first of all, choose a location where you have solid internet connection, something that's not going to break down. Generally, if you're at home, there's probably good places, there's bad places. The worst thing to have happen is for you to drop your call while you're in the middle of it. You get knocked out, but your students are still there. So you want to make sure that you're not dropping off of here. You also want to find a place where there are very few disturbances. You can have your students mute their mics and noise can happen in the background. That doesn't affect the rest of the class. But if you're in a place with an open mic, you can't mute your mic. So you have to keep it open. So you want to find a place where there are no disturbances, where kids aren't running through, where dogs aren't barking, phones aren't ringing, those kind of things. You want to keep things where you have a little bit of a quiet area if you can find that. You need to establish some ground rules with your students and set up a set of guidelines for what it is you expect. You do that in your traditional class. You set certain parameters in place of routines, and the students know when they come into your class exactly what to do. You want to establish those exact things as well when you are teaching in the online, or you're teaching in a video conference as well. Some things like have your students use the chat room. Use that, and then you coordinate and tell them what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what you want. Don't talk over other students. Make sure that they know this, that, the other thing I said at the beginning, have them mute their mic with the idea that if they have a question or want to talk, then they unmute their mic and they can speak, but that they take their turns to do so. Keep it simple, but just establish some different parameters. I would make the materials, handouts, things that you're utilizing in class, make them available electronically. You can do that by posting them through your Blackboard shell. You can do that by sending them through email, whatever you wish to do. But the key element is make things accessible to them so that they have access to it. Next, be aware of your body language. Certain things that you would do in a classroom get lost in a video conferencing. If you look, all we're seeing of each other is just the bust up. We're seeing just headshots of most of us, maybe a little bit of shoulders and hands and other movements, but you have to be very, very careful of the body language and things that you're doing, because it's different in the video conference than it is in a face-to-face class. Next, think about this. Get your students involved. Okay? Get your students involved. You want them to engage in the learning. You want them to be active rather than passive. I would encourage dialogue when it is appropriate. In other words, if you're doing a presentation like this where you don't want as much interaction, that's one thing. But there may be times like me, I generally just don't lecture straight out. I do a lot of interaction back and forth. And so as I'm talking about things, I'm open for questions, I'm open for comments, and we'll involve them in that. You can do the same thing. The key is you want to maintain that rapport that you have in the face-to-face while you're in the online. And you also want to promote different levels of interactivity, not between just you and the students, but also between the students and each other. So you want to maintain that level of activity that you normally have. If you don't, students get bored, things get tense, and they're just not as active in that process. You want to keep a lively, energetic, and interactive class as much as you possibly can. So the energy that you generate in your face-to-face class, you want to generate here as well. A lot of people, when they first get onto a video conference, get a little nervous because now, hey, I'm on camera. Don't think of it that way. Don't think that anything other than just be yourself, be natural, act natural, speak natural. Just do the same thing that you would do in your face-to-face class. and just try and relax. Now, I'll be honest with you, after the first time you do it, all that nervousness will go away if you have it, even if you do have it. I would assume that your students see and hear everything, because they do. And even so, some things are accentuated in the video, so just be cognizant of that. This next one's a big one, maintaining eye contact. That's something that you say, well, how do I possibly do that? Well, if you're like me, I have the dual screen set up in my office, and my video, or excuse me, webcam is on my laptop. So if I open my laptop up, but I'm looking at things on the other two screens, it looks like I'm looking away or I'm looking off in space somewhere. What I would tell you to do is take your computer, take your laptop off of your docking station, put it in the middle of your desk, and just work off of your laptop. What that will allow you to do is any documents that you throw up on your screen or anything that you're looking on the screen, you're more likely to look through to the camera, and that gives you more of a direct eyesight, and the students appear that you're looking directly at them. It makes a difference as opposed to you looking off. There's a greater connection. Keep your movement to a minimum. We kind of talked about that before, but any big gestures can be distracting. Things that you do in classroom with large movement is okay, but in the video conference, it's a little different. It can be distracting. You want to make sure that you are constantly checking and centering yourself in the screen, and that you don't have a lot of big movements in what you're doing with that. That can be distracting to the learning process. Do things like sit up straight, don't lean back, avoid reading excessively, because that really shows the top of your head. For those of us that are follically challenged, that creates a problem. For those of you not, maybe not so much. I would tell you, be aware of the camera range, so that as you're moving in and out, as you're keeping yourself center framed. And in the upper right-hand corner within Google Hangout, you have a little thumbnail of yourself, so you can kind of just glance up there occasionally, make sure you're still centered, that your laptop hasn't moved or something along those lines. Again, minimize any distractions. And you can think, well, I've blocked out all sounds, I've done this, but be careful of things like, tapping your pen or clicking or, fixing your hair or doing anything else that could be distracting. Things that are not distracting in your face-to-face classes, when you're doing video conferencing, can be distracting. And again, for about the 40th time, eliminate any background noise that you've got. When you're speaking, speak clearly, speak in a normal voice, enunciate. You don't have to accentuate what you're doing. You don't have to speak faster, speak slower, speak louder. Just speak in a normal voice as if you were talking to somebody on the phone, but you want to make sure that you use inflections and that you speak in a normal voice. That's just something that takes a little bit of practice. Most of the time when you're teaching, we all expect responses from our students. We ask questions or we give them things to think about, and we are generally expecting them to respond in some way, shape, or form. This is also accentuated in the online, because when you ask that question, there's, when you ask a question in a classroom, there is that pause that gets there. It's kind of that pregnant pause, and it gets uncomfortable sometimes. This can be accentuated in the video because people just generally don't respond to video. They're not sure if they're supposed to or not, because they're sitting remotely in their home, so it's something different. If so, repeat the question, and you can, if you feel you've waited long enough, you can call on somebody, and just, you're not trying to call them out, but you can start the ball rolling as far as getting discussions going. Clothing, things that you don't think about for classroom. We all generally, we all dress professionally, and so we don't really think about what we're dressing like and how that comes across. When you were in video, things are a little different. I mean, have you ever seen and watched television where you've got somebody with, big patterns, herringbones and things like that? Sometimes they don't translate well and don't show or video well over a conference like this. So I would tell you to stay with solid colors, muted patterns if you have to, or you are. Dark, neutral colors are probably best. There's some research and literature out there that says blue is the best color. That's fine. Dark, neutral colors, earth tones, pastels will also work, but just keep it simple. Is basically, you don't want things that are going to vie for people's attention. If you're somebody who wears jewelry, limit down the amount of jewelry. You don't want a lot of distractions with that either. The other things to avoid, if you would, any busy patterns, plaids, pinstripes, tweeds, any kind of thing like that, something that just will not show well through camera. Generally, all white or strong black and white contrast generally don't show well. Reds and blacks have a tendency to bleed. Shiny, dangly jewelry or a lot of accessories can cause glare, and glare becomes an issue. I'll be perfectly honest with you, and you have to be very cognizant of lighting with those things. Lighting becomes the issue in general, and you notice from some of the videos that you're looking at of each other right now, you see that some people are a little more washed out, some people are a little too light, some people are a little too dark. You need to find that balance. You need to be very, very careful of overhead background lighting. Background lighting that's too light will wash you out. Overhead lighting, especially for somebody like me who, as we said, I was follically challenged, if you put strong overhead lighting on, it glares through the camera. So you need to watch that as well. You don't want glare coming through. Okay. Just what I would tell you to do is to double check your lighting ahead of time. Check what is going on. Before. In other words, you got too much light, too little light, and you can adjust it accordingly. So, questions about any of this? Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. At this point, I am going to stop recording.